Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and NFL related news. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to free agency. The legal tampering period happened Monday the 10th. Today is technically when the league New Year starts, so players can officially sign their deals and trades can officially go through. But that doesn't mean things haven't been happening around the NFL with players re-signing with their teams, uh, other players signing big deals elsewhere, trades going through, and we're mainly going to cover a lot of what the Eagles have been doing, especially the past few weeks, or not weeks, past few days, definitely the past week. That's fairly important. I don't believe we covered the Zach Bond signing last episode, so we can jump into that. But before we get started, I just want to ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. I quite enjoy doing this for you guys, and I'll be back every week, so nothing ain't going to be stopping me now. So at this point, I would just like you guys to, kind of reciprocate the feelings that I'm given. But with all that being said, let's jump into the first topic, that being Zach Bond re-signing with the Eagles. Looking at his new deal, he signed a 3-year, $51 million deal with the Eagles with up to $34 million guaranteed. To me, this was the big deal that needed to get done. And as I've been saying, this and Becton, as long as you get those two back, I didn't really care who else you really wanted to bring in. I know we're a little bit tight on the cap this year, and then the following year we are opening up some money, especially through some of the moves we've been doing, and probably will continue to be doing for the next couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one big move that keeps shocking the Eagles, or shocking Eagles fans every day. We'll get into some of what I think might happen in the following today and the rest of the day. But looking at the Zach Bond deal, we're able to bring in the bald eagle, and we're able to keep him for at least 3 years, and then we'll hopefully be able to re-sign Nakobe Dean, keeping these two linebackers together, and they seem to work together very well. So I can't really complain that we're keeping the fortress on the middle of our field, especially on the defense. Now going through some of the other stuff that have been happening around the Eagles, but still relating to them, let's look at some of the free agents that have left the Eagles. Looking at it, and we're going to get into some of the more crazy stuff later. Let's start out with the two that we kind of knew were leaving, and we weren't sure whether they were going to be coming back, but we were pretty sure that they were going elsewhere. Milton Williams signed a 4-year, $104 million deal with up to $26 million guaranteed, getting paid around $40 million a year to be the number one defensive tackle in New England. Before we get too deep into this, because I'm going to forget after we go through everybody, I just want to congratulate all the former Eagles on their new deals, getting the money that they deserve, especially Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, who we'll get to in a second. But overall, I just want to say how proud I am of these players going out, signing, and getting generational wealth to help support them and their families for maybe the next couple of generations. Milton Williams, it was originally announced that he was going to the Panthers, and then 2 hours later, it was refuted by Ian Rappaport, and then that the deal wasn't done, and then it came out 30 minutes later that he would eventually be going to the Patriots, once they came with even more money to throw at Milton Williams, so we were never going to be able to bring him back. We kind of knew that like 2 weeks ago, that it was going to be impossible for us to bring him back, especially on the cap that we have currently. Overall, I do believe Milton Williams will see success, especially under a coach like Mike Vrabel. My question is how much? He's not a Jalen Carter. He's not somebody that teams, if they double team him, he's going to find a way through it. Has he been a Jalen Carter merchant and just staying with being paired with Jalen Carter? Has he been, taking advantage of that and now getting a bag, and now is he going to fade off? I don't really know. I'm definitely interested to see how he performs up in New England. Um, I do believe he'll do well. I just don't think he's going to do $104 million well. That's all I'm saying right now. I definitely want to see how he performs. I'm going to keep my eye on him, especially being probably the top paid free agent from the Eagles. But currently, $104 million was a steep price for almost any team anyway. Next up, we have the other compadre of Milton Williams that we knew that was most likely leaving, that being Josh Sweat. He agreed to a 4-year, $76.4 million deal with the Cardinals with up to $41 million guaranteed. He's going to get paid around $20 million a year to be the top defensive lineman on the team. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't a little bit higher, especially with A, coming off of a pretty solid year, B, coming off of a pretty good Super Bowl win, pretty dominant. He could have been the Super Bowl MVP. And then finally, the defensive edge market absolutely skyrocketing with the Max Crosby deal and the Myles Garrett deal. Both we'll get into in a couple minutes here. But especially with those two deals getting done and Josh Sweat still putting up decent numbers, I was surprised it's only $20 million and wasn't closer to a figure like $30 million a year. But ultimately, he's going to the Arizona Cardinals, and he's getting paid to be probably the top defensive lineman on the team. The Cardinals currently struggle, especially in the trenches. So I'm not surprised that they're bringing in a guy that Jonathan Gannon knows well in Josh Sweat, and who performed well in his system during Jonathan Gannon's 2022 campaign in Philadelphia as defensive coordinator. Overall, I kind of knew Josh Sweat was going. I mean, I hope that he didn't, but I can say that about everybody, every single one of these guys. So overall, I will say it's slightly upsetting to see these two guys go, but we knew these guys were going to be leaving, and they got paid top dollar, something that we really can't match currently at the minute. Next up, as we go down these moves, I might disagree with a little bit more than letting the other two walk because they were going to get paid big money. Next up is Darius Slay. He is currently reportedly signing with the Steelers, but he is still under contract with the Eagles. We do not know any specifics. That's the weird part about this deal, is we do not know any specifics of the contract that the Steelers are giving him, leading me to believe that there might be a slim chance he comes back to the Eagles, but if he doesn't, it's definitely because the Eagles aren't budging on the price tag that they gave him. I do believe he'll probably ultimately go to the Steelers, which is a little bit surprising when you heard him talk about the Lions and the Eagles, especially on the podcast with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a little bit surprising that he didn't go to either one of those two places, back to Philly or back to Detroit, but I do believe there might be a slim chance that he still returns. I mean, we're talking like less than 5% chance. But less than 5% is better than 0%, which is some of these other Eagles players have. We don't know how much he's getting paid, so he could be getting overpaid for 1 year. He's definitely not doing 2. Let's be honest here. He's a 34-year-old corner. He's going to be 35 during the season. And we normally don't see longevity from that position. So right now he's currently on charted waters with how he's going to perform, and especially with how the level he's going to perform at. If he goes to the Steelers, he'll be paired across from Joey Porter Jr., which isn't a horrible thing. Those would be two good corners for the Steelers, who desperately need them. But overall, it seems like Darius Slay most likely is going to sign with the Steelers, especially after getting released. I believe as I'm filming this on Wednesday during the new league year, he'll get released as a post June 1st cut, and then both parties, both the Eagles and and Darius Slay, can go their own separate ways. Next up, we have somebody that I thought the Eagles actually had a chance of bringing back, and I was hoping that they would, but ultimately it fell through. And that being Isaiah Rodgers Isaiah Rodgers signed with the Vikings on a 2-year, $15 million deal with $8 million guaranteed. This was a little bit of a head scratcher compared to the last few, because the Eagles could have easily re-signed Isaiah, especially on the deal that the Vikings gave him. I'm not totally happy that he won't return, but it may play into Howie's bigger picture, which we'll get into in a minute here. But this is unfortunate to see. I was really hoping that this would probably be one of the guys that return. I was hoping that it would be Bond, Becton, and Isaiah Rodgers. Obviously, Bond returned. Becton is still in limbo currently, and now Rodgers has left. I was kind of hoping that maybe we sign him on a 2-year deal, let him prove himself at that corner 2 spot. But it looks like we're going to have, the Vikings are bringing in Isaiah Rodgers to replace Byron Murphy at corner. And we are going to have either draft, sign a cheap free agent and hope that he shapes out, or not draft, hope that one of the guys that have been sitting behind these veteran guys like a Isaiah Rodgers and a Darius Slay, one of these guys like a Kelee Ringo or an Eli Ricks have the ability to step up and play that corner 2 spot. My guess, if you want me to be honest, if we can see a return of the 2023 Eli Ricks, I would be totally comfortable with him being that other Eagles corner. But if that's more of a wait and see kind of thing, that's more of a wait and see what happens, especially during training camp as a whole. Next up, we'll talk about Oren Burks, another guy that I thought maybe the Eagles could have brought back on a cheaper deal, but I can see the reason why he didn't return. Again, he's on a cheap contract, agreed to a 2-year, $5 million deal with the Bengals. The Eagles probably could have brought Burks back, but I feel like he didn't really want to return as much. He was looking more for a starting role, which wouldn't be easy to find in Philly, especially with Zach Bond getting re-signed and Nakobe Dean coming back from injury at the beginning of the year. Bengals definitely have holes at the linebacker position, and giving Burks a solid chance to try and make a name for himself somewhere. Do I feel like he could probably develop into a guy? I do. I saw him during the stretch throughout the playoffs where he had to fill in for Nakobe Dean, and he did an amazing job. So I do believe in Burks' ability. Do I wish we had him at the Eagles, especially for a depth piece? Yes, but again, we also have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who also is going to have a shot at some point. So it's more of a letting a younger guy step up and letting an older guy try to go make a name for himself and get money when he still can. Another weird one, Kenny Gainwell is reportedly signing a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Currently, the details are not available at the moment, but it can't be too much, even though the Steelers currently don't have a running back 1 because Najee, I believe, went to the Chargers. Where did Najee Harris go? Najee Harris. Yeah, he went to the Chargers on a 1-year deal. So, the Steelers are probably going to bring in a cheap running back who actually can play pretty well, but it's more of a wait and see how he develops, especially if he becomes the running back 1 over in Pittsburgh. All right, so those were all the free agents that we lost. But I do want to get into 2 moves that the Eagles have made. So let's go into the one that makes a little bit more sense to me first. We have the Kenny Pickett trade. The Eagles traded Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I will refer to as a DTR throughout the rest of the podcast, and a 2025 fifth-round pick as well. Not a horrible idea, especially when you have Tanner McKee as your backup, who really did prove himself late this past season, and we can get a pick out of Kenny Pickett, so to a quarterback needy team. That's not a horrible idea. That's a solid move. We're able to bring in another quarterback. DTR could be an amazing guy to use on the scouting squad in order to mimic mobile quarterbacks' abilities like a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, and maybe even a Josh Allen, but he kind of has a different running style from Josh Allen and a different moving style as well. I don't hate this move. To me, Tanner McKee really proved himself as a good product, especially as a backup. Dorian Thompson-Robinson could learn a lot sitting behind a Jalen Hurts, and especially with those two, I forget who DTR's comparison was, but I believe it was somewhat close to Jalen Hurts. I want to say it was probably Lamar Jackson, but especially with his build being a little bit not as muscular as a Jalen Hurts and more like a slimmer Lamar Jackson. DTR, and this is going to be a theme, especially in the next trade as well that we're going to talk about. DTR was part of the top 30 visits 2023 draft, I want to say, with the Eagles. So Howie Roseman kind of knew him, already sat down with him a few years ago, so he felt comfortable in bringing in a guy that he knew could sit behind Jalen Hurts and maybe learn and maybe even eventually become the backup with the Eagles. So he has started a few games, but as a whole, I do feel like Tanner McKee is probably the better backup, better choice in this scenario. The next trade that I'm going to talk about is definitely a little bit more interesting from the standpoint that I don't see the vision, but I can give you guys a couple of theories why it may have happened. I don't love it, but given time to sit back, really comprehend what is going on, I can kind of understand what is going on, but the vision isn't quite clear. So the Philadelphia Eagles sent C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a 2026 sixth-round pick to the Texans for guard Kenyon Green and a 2026 fifth-round pick. So the Eagles move up a little bit in the 2026 draft, and they bring in a guard who might be able to compete with Steen if Becton doesn't come back, or could be a solid depth piece that Stoutland can continue to develop. This is slightly head-scratching, though, because of how important C.J. Gardner-Johnson was to this defense this past year, and we literally just signed him to like a 3-year deal. But I have a couple ideas in a second here. So the past few weeks, he was making comments and complaining that he wasn't seen as a leader by many of the veterans around the team. This was quite evident in his online spat with Darius Slay. I didn't really report on this much due to me thinking nothing would really come of it, and I'd rather just stick to the X's and O's of football, and especially kind of like the deals and stuff. But looking at it now, I definitely should have talked about this a little bit more, especially with what happened. Something bigger than elevating the cap and making more cap space is going on here, with several smaller insiders saying that C.J. Gardner-Johnson had become more disillusioned with himself and his worth on the team, and people were trying to tell him to calm down, and clearly he wasn't really backing down at this moment. It's probably better to just move on from him than continue to have him destroy this locker room, which has been really solid, especially this past year. The Eagles, if you if you make a big stink about anything, you're most likely gone because Jeffrey Lurie is scarred from like the McNabb Tio stuff in the mid 2000s. So overall, I mean, we saw it again. We saw it with a bunch of other teams. I mean, no, we saw it with a bunch of other Eagles teams where they got rid of guys, especially if they were outspoken and talking. Now, do I agree that C.J. Gardner-Johnson helped improve this defense, especially this past year from the 2023 season? Yes. I do feel like he was a major integral part of bringing in a new type of swagger to this defense, but he already kind of passed it on to a lot of the younger guys, which brings me to my idea of why trades like this and the Kenny Pickett trade is happening and other moves of the Eagles not signing free agents. The Eagles this year currently have around $20 million, $22 million in cap space. And we still haven't even brought in Becton yet, who could still be a lot. This trade, the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade, we brought in a young depth piece on his last year of his rookie deal, especially after losing out, not re-signing a Nick Gates, or I forget who the other guy was, or Fred Johnson, not bringing in either of those guys, which can play several different positions. We're going to need depth at offensive line, and we know that the Eagles do that anyway through the draft, through smaller free agent signings, and I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see that next week, next month, next few months, where we bring in other offensive line and defensive line pieces that are either older and cheaper or younger and unproven. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is no big splash play coming for like a Trey Hendrickson or something like that. But my theory right now is that although you're not saving too much this year with that trade, you're only saving like $900,000 because you still have to pay Kenyon Green what he's due. But I do believe that the move right now is Howie is relying on the younger guys to step up, relying on a Sidney Brown to step up, relying on a Kelee Ringo, Eli Ricks, Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith, all of these guys to take the next step to fill in the spots that we are losing guys at. A Jeremiah Trotter Jr. being a solid backup. He's relying on these younger guys, which he drafted, and giving them a shot to step up, especially with some of the guys. And this is more a defensive side of the ball thing. We don't really have to be too concerned with the offensive side of the ball at the minute. With these guys being younger, and we were the youngest defense in the league last year, and we're only going to get younger because we shed some of our older pieces. These guys need to step up and prove themselves. And I feel like with Vic Fangio being able to groom some of these guys, it definitely works out better. Does this mean we don't bring in any more pieces at all? That's not what I'm saying. There's definitely a couple different pieces on the market, which I might get into, that can fit the Eagles' culture, and they have familiarity with some of the coaching. But eventually we're going to have to belly up and pay some of these guys like a Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship. We're going to have to pay these guys. And when that comes, we can't be signing some of these older guys to longer deals with more money tied to them. Because then that's going to be inhibit our ability to be able to kind of manipulate the cap in our best interest. How he's been able to do this so far is he gives proven guys that are on the younger side longer deals till 2029, which is when the cap is expected to go up like a huge amount, like 15 to 20%. It's expected to rise that much, which will then allow us to eat a lot of the guaranteed money we put at the end of the contracts. I bring this up because we're putting some of these proven guys on longer deals with money on the back end of their deals in order to win now. Instead of paying now, we're winning now with pieces that have guaranteed money, so they're continuing to buy in, and then eventually we're going to have to pay these younger guys, which we have drafted. The Eagles' entire purpose is to reload. It's not rebuild. And if that's with younger pieces, like Howie said, especially during the NFL Combine this past year or this past month, we're going to see unorthodox approaches to things, and we're going to have to rely on the younger guys to step up. And I feel like, especially with Vic Fangio staying around for the foreseeable future, I feel like he might be able to groom some of these guys into becoming superstars. I mean, if you see Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith under 1 year, and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean on their first year in the NFL, if you see some of these guys who are going into their second and third year in the NFL, they're becoming superstars, and they're only just getting started. Who else? Nakobe Dean looked much better under this system, and he struggled, especially the past few years. He's going into the last year of his rookie deal. So is Jordan Davis. We're going to have to belly up a decent amount of cash in order to keep these guys around and continue to build around this core that we have. Does this mean that all these guys are staying? No, I don't think so. Some of these guys are eventually going to walk because they're going to be looking for big money, and Eagles aren't looking to pay guys to stay for their entire careers unless they're proven products. If they have a shaky year next year and they're on their rookie contract, they might walk, or they might sign to a short deal with little money to help prove themselves one more time with the Eagles. And while they address that same position in the draft to try and reload if things do not go well. So I do believe the plan right now is to go into this draft some depth positions, especially at now safety, corner, and defensive edge, and allow the guys there to try to step up and try to prove themselves to everybody, especially the Eagles organization. Do we still need depth? Yeah, I still feel like we go out, get a Justin Simmons, a older vet, but somebody that was one of the best defensive players ever under a Vic Fangio system, and knows our defensive backs coach as well. He might be the veteran we bring in to have a solid presence, especially in that defensive back room, and he wouldn't be a horrible tandem with Reed Blankenship as well. Do I feel like Reed Blankenship steps up? I believe he's the oldest in that defensive backs room, and it's about time. It's his time to really take over, and I hope Blankenship stays and resigns. So eventually, when that I think he has one more year left on his deal as well. But some of these guys are going to have to step up, like a Reed Blankenship, like a Jordan Davis, like a Jalen Carter. He probably wouldn't step up and be a leader, but you understand where I'm getting at. Would I mind us bringing in a Justin Simmons? Not at all, but I feel like Sidney Brown could also give us a solid chance at being a good corner. A good safety. So, overall, do I entirely agree with the strategy Howie is using right now? Maybe. I don't see the vision. It's not clear. But I know Howie can get it done if he sets his mind to it. So I just have to believe in what his idea is. Let's see. Next up, we have a lot of the free agency moves. I'll just go over some of the bigger stuff. Let's see. Josh Allen agreed to terms on a 6-year deal worth $330 million with up to $25 or $250 million guaranteed to re-sign with the Buffalo Bills. He'll be under contract through the 2030 season. Jesus. And he's the second highest paid quarterback on average, only right behind Dak Prescott. But that was a big deal. It's earned, especially coming off of an MVP season, and the Bills haven't been just quiet after that. They re-signed Khalil Shakir to a 4-year extension, up to $60 million. They extended Greg Rousseau to a 4-year, $80 million extension. Let's see. They just re-signed, as I was recording this, DeMar Hamlin to an extension. And one big move that I'm actually kind of liking for the Bills is signing Joey Bosa, who was released by the Chargers, to a 1-year, $12 million deal with $12.6 million deal with a max value of 15.6. Let's see. Dolphins were really quiet. Obviously, Patriots were one of the bigger spenders, especially early during the, legal tampering period. But Milton Williams, obviously, we went over him, 4-year, $104 million total. Harold Landry, I wouldn't mind if he went to the Patriots. I wouldn't have hated if he came to the Eagles, but he really has to earn it. He signed a 3-year, $26 million guaranteed deal with a max value of $48 million. They got, where is he? Robert Spillane signed a deal. Currently, I'm pretty sure a lot of that stuff is his deal is currently unknown, how much he signed for, but that's a really sneaky, solid pickup. They got Mac Hollins, not a bad pickup there, 2-year, $8.4 million deal. And Josh Dobbs, who I would like to see him take another snap in the NFL, but he's a really good backup. And not a bad idea for the Patriots picking that up to have him help Drake May. Agreed to a 2-year, $8 million deal. Jets, okay, one of the bigger ones. They got Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal with up to $30 million fully guaranteed. That's interesting. I definitely predicted that he would most likely sign with the Jets, but the money to me seems almost like too much. So it's more of a wait and see how he performs under the Jets. He still needs to prove himself, although he looked really good in the start of the season with the Steelers, starting at 4-2. I wouldn't be surprised if they move on from him next year, if he can't prove himself this year. Let me preface that. Baltimore Ravens got D-Hop to a 1-year, $6 million contract. Bengals, let's see, they re-signed Mike Gesicki and they franchise tag T. Higgins. They signed Oren Burks. B.J. Hill wasn't a bad pickup there. 3-year, $33 million. Not a bad idea. Okay. The Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they traded for Kenny Pickett to have either a solid backup or allow him to start a few games while the rookie quarterback, whoever they draft, can get their bearings in the NFL at first. They re-signed Myles Garrett to a 4-year extension that includes $123 million guaranteed and around a $40 million per year salary. This ties Garrett to the Browns for the next 6 years. Also includes a no-trade clause as well, meaning that Garrett completely lied to the entire NFL saying that he wanted to win because he's in Cleveland for 6 years where he cannot escape because he has a no-trade clause. And the Browns, obviously, that entire saga was fun to watch. They obviously didn't want to get rid of him. And they just threw the most guaranteed money at a non-quarterback position player ever in the NFL's history. So that's fun. I really wish that we got Myles Garrett, but oh well. I wasn't going to pay him $40 million a year because we don't have that money. But as a whole, Myles Garrett lied to the entire NFL, to our faces, saying that he wanted to win a championship and then resign with the Browns for generational money. Let's see, the Steelers, big trade on their part. They traded for DK Metcalf. What do they get? So it was DK Metcalf and a late round draft pick swap by both teams, both the Seahawks and the Steelers. And then they immediately signed DK Metcalf to a 4-year, $132 million extension. This is definitely interesting with now DK Metcalf and George Pickens both being wide receivers at Pittsburgh. I really like this move. Me personally, it takes a lot of pressure off of George Pickens, and I don't really care who's wide receiver one. That doesn't matter to me. I just like to see what quarterback they bring in because they currently don't have any quarterback. They're rumored to bring in Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers still has it, which at the end of the season, I want to say the second half of the season, he went 18 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. I don't hate that. With a George Pickens and a DK Metcalf, anything could happen. But they need to address the offensive line, especially the interior. The rest of their team, they could win off their defense if their offense is competent enough. And I feel like bringing in a piece like DK Metcalf shows that they're trying to address that. Let's see, Houston Texans. So obviously, C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade. They traded away Laremy Tunsil to the Commanders. We'll get to that in a second. They brought in offensive guard Laken Tomlinson, but they've essentially... Oh, and they also traded for Christian Kirk from the Jaguars in exchange for a 2026 7th-round pick. They're trying to get C.J. Stroud killed. I mean, like, he doesn't have an offensive line. They just traded away 2 of their starting offensive linemen. I know Laremy Tunsil's getting up there in age, but he's still one of the best left tackles in the NFL. And they traded away one of their starting guards. I mean, what are you guys trying to do? That was your problem last season, was that C.J. Stroud did not have a chance to just drop back in the pocket and try to throw a pass. Now, you guys don't have an offensive line at all. You guys have to address that, and soon. Obviously, Laken Tomlinson is a good first step, but if you guys don't do anything more than that, the Texans might miss the playoffs, in my opinion. They might be screwed. Colts had a couple sneaky moves. Signed safety Cameron Bynum. Agreed to a 4-year, $60 million contract. Brought in Charvarius Ward. Agreed to a 3-year, up to $60 million $60 million with $35 million guaranteed. And brought in Daniel Jones on a 1-year, $14 million deal with up to $13.15 million fully guaranteed. Colts really, this is Shane Steichen's last season. He might not make it halfway through the season if he's not able to win and find a competent quarterback. Daniel Jones isn't a horrible first step. Competent isn't the word I'd use for Indiana Jones coming in here, but yeah, he's definitely gonna put pressure on Anthony Richardson to step up his game, because this is a proven starter in the NFL coming in and competing for your spot. So I'd like to see how that quarterback battle plays out. I'll definitely keep an eye on that throughout the preseason and training camp. Jacksonville, they brought in Dyami Brown from the formerly from the Commanders on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Besides that, they signed some offensive linemen. Robert Hainsey, that's a solid guy right there. I know the name, I just forget where he came from. Agreed to a 3-year, $21 million deal with $13 million guaranteed. Yeah, and that's really, those 2 deals were probably the only 2 really good ones that they entirely had. Tennessee Titans, you guys signed Dan Moore Jr. That was actually, he's alright. If you ask any Pittsburgh Steelers fan, he might be one of the worst left tackles in the NFL, but you all signed him to a 4-year, $82 million deal with up to $50 million guaranteed, and $30 million in the first year. Jesus. But, damn. Alright. Well, solid pickup. Good luck. I mean, a lot of Steelers fans hate him. I don't entirely remember him, which means that he probably wasn't that good. but he also probably isn't as bad as they say. So, good luck. That's all I can say. Broncos making quite a few moves here. They signed free agent Dre Greenlaw to a 3-year, $35 million guaranteed. Excuse me. Phew. And as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be good for you guys. They signed safety Talon Hufunga, Talanoa Hufunga to a 3-year, $45 million deal with up to $20 million guaranteed as well. So, 2 solid moves to help shore up 2 positions that they really needed help with. Now they need to also focus on skill positions, which I feel like they might do more of that through the draft. Chiefs. They traded away quite a few of their offensive linemen. Again, same scenario with the Texans. That was your weakness, and you just sent that away. But they were able to re-sign free agent Nick Bolton to a 3-year, $45 million contract to anchor the middle of the defense. They franchise tagged Trey Smith in hoping that they can get a longer deal done. And they signed offensive tackle Jalen Moore to a 2-year, $30 million contract. So they addressed it a little bit, but they sent away some of their better offensive linemen in a trade or let them walk in free agency. Raiders, this was one trade that really blew up the NFL, especially on Friday night. Geno Smith was traded to the Raiders in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick. Apparently, the Seahawks wanted to pay Geno. Geno was looking at more like a $45 million a year contract. Seahawks were looking at $35 million a year. At some point, he eventually said that he just wanted to get traded and that he would only really want to play with his old coach, Pete Carroll, again. So I'm going to enjoy this reuniting of the two, and I definitely want to see how well, because I feel like Geno Smith played his best years in Seattle under Pete Carroll, and it also solves the Vegas quarterback question as well, so it allows other teams to kind of start to figure out their own quarterback market as well. They also signed Max Crosby to a 3-year extension worth up to $106.5 million deal with up to $91.5 million guaranteed. That was the highest paid non-quarterback player in NFL history before Myles Garrett got paid that, and then both the two inflated the market quite high. So there you go. Good job, guys. You guys completely inflated the market for defensive edges at this point. They also signed offensive guard Alex Kappa to a 2-year, $11 million contract. Not a bad pickup for them. And they also signed Jeremy Chin as well. So, Raiders, solid beginning of the free agency. I would like to see how they continue to build on top of this, but it's a good start. Chargers, let's see, they re-signed Khalil Mack. They let Joey Bosa walk. They signed Deontay Jackson to a 2-year, $13 million deal. Elijah Molden signed a 3-year, $18.75 million extension to stay with the team. They re-signed Bradley Bozeman, and they got Najee Harris on a 1-year, $9.25 million contract. So, not bad for the Chargers. You guys are improving, I guess. You guys need to get wide receivers, so. Looking at the NFC East, again, Cowboys really haven't done anything major. They re-signed their long snapper and punter. They re-signed Cavante Turpin to a 3-year, $18 million deal, making him, I believe, the highest paid special teamers in the NFL. They re-signed Osa. Oh, I'm not even going to get that name. Their defensive lineman that they re-signed for a 4-year, $80 million contract. Osa Odighiwa. Digua? Odighiwa. Anyway, yeah, and also signing Javonte Williams to a 1 year, $3 million contract. Yeah, you guys signed a always injured running back and let Rico Dowell walk. Now that's how you win free agency. Let's see, Giants. They signed Javon Holland to a 3 year, $45.3 million deal. That's really it. Eagles, we already went over all what we did. Commanders traded for Debo. Did we go over that? I feel like we went over their trade for Debo Samuels. Re-signed Zach Ertz to a 1 year, $9 million deal. Traded for Laramie Tunsil, acquired in a trade with the Texans, along with a 2025 fourth-round pick in exchange for a third and seventh-round pick in the 2025, and a second and fourth rounder in 2026. This is a fairly solid pickup. Helps improve the line with the Commanders. Helps give, obviously, Jaden Daniels more time in the pocket. Though Laramie Tunsil is up there in age, he's still a solid tackle, so I kind of have to applaud this move, even though I absolutely hate the Commanders at this point. Re-signed Bobby Wagner to a 1 year deal up to $9.5 million. And that's really it. Some people want to say the Javon Kinlaw signing was a big deal. He averages, for the past few years that he's been in the NFL, he's averaged less than 3 sacks a season. And he averages, I forget, it's like somewhere around like 15 TFLs a season. You guys overpaid for a bummy offensive or defensive lineman, and y'all are trying to flex that. Yeah, good luck at that. All right, let's see how much I actually care. Let's see. Okay, Bears, fairly good start to the off season for them. Let's see. They traded for Jonah Jackson from the Raiders. They gave in exchange for a 2025 sixth-round pick. So that's a good. They're building offensive line. Then they traded for Joe Thuney from the Chiefs for a 2026 fourth-round draft pick. And then finally they signed Drew Dalman to a 3 year, $42 million contract with up to $28 million guaranteed. Now, this is you obviously see where they're going. They're going for trenches. They're building up the trenches, protecting their franchise guy, and I got to applaud this. You don't really see this from teams too much, where they go out and they just spend on offensive linemen, whether that's through trade compensation or through free agency as well. So I got to applaud this move, or these few moves by the Chicago Bears as a whole. You guys are looking to protect your guy, and I got to give it up to you. Detroit Lions signed, their only really big one was signing DJ Reed. We don't currently have any info on that signing, but when we do, I'll give it to you guys. Packers did nothing. Vikings re-signed Aaron Jones to a 2 year, $20 million deal. They also lost out on Sam Darnold as well, but we'll get into that in a second here. Let's see. They signed an offensive guard, a center, both that being Will Fries to a 5 year, $88 million deal, and Ryan Kelly, the center, to a 2 year, $18 million deal. They also signed Jonathan Allen to a 3 year, $51 million deal. Let's see. Yeah, that's really it. It was kind of announced that at this point, the Vikings are moving forward with the idea that J.J. McCarthy is their starting quarterback. So, there you go, folks. That kind of gives you a hint of what happened to Sam Darnold in this free agency before I touch on it. Let's see. Falcons did nothing. Panthers kind of got screwed over multiple times. They signed a lot of offensive line depth, but nobody's like a huge, like, big guy, like, big piece bringing in to try to help improve as a day one starter. They agreed to terms on a 4-year extension worth up to $100 million with corner J.C. Horn. So, got to give it up to J.C. Horn, although he hasn't been as productive as some of his other counterparts from the same year he was drafted, that being Patrick Surtain II. It's still a solid idea to bring in a guy that has been somewhat locked down over the last few years. Saints are in cap hell. The best thing that they did was bring in safety Justin Reid on a 3-year, $31.5 million deal. And that's really it, because they really can't sign anybody else huge to any more deals. Bucks re-signed Chris Godwin to a 3-year, $66 million deal. It was rumored that he also, Chris Godwin left up to $20 million on the table to return to Tampa Bay. So, I like the loyalty. I can kind of understand it. They also signed Hassan Reddick to a 1-year, $14 million deal with up to $12 million guaranteed, and Levante David as well to a 1-year, $10 million deal. So, sharing up the defense, bringing in some vets to help build around some of the younger pieces that they have on defense. Looking at the Cardinals, obviously we touched on Josh Sweat. They have a couple other pieces that really aren't that notable, some depth pieces. Rams, obviously Matthew Stafford. They also got Devontae Adams on a 2-year, $46 million deal with up to $26 million guaranteed. So, that's a solid signing, and it gives Matthew Stafford another weapon as well. They're also planning on cutting Cooper Kupp today, I believe, who will hit the free agent market as well. 49ers really had to let a lot of people go, and they're not really able to sign anybody back. And finally, probably one of the bigger things to talk about is Seattle Seahawks. They did not address the offensive line really at all. Rather, they signed Sam Darnold to a 3-year, up to $100 million deal with $55 million guaranteed. This is interesting, especially once Geno Smith went. The rumors were heavy that Sam Darnold was most likely going to Seattle, and understandable. This is a good deal for Sam. Not a good situation. They don't really have a wide receiver besides Jackson Smith-Njigba, because they traded DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Well, they cut Tyler Lockett. But they need wide receiver. They need offensive line. And then they need guys on the defensive side of the ball to step up and take over as well. So, Seahawks need a couple different things to go well, and then they're going to be able to actually call themselves contenders. Alright, so that's it for this episode of the Flying with the Flock podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. I want to thank you guys for stopping by again. And if you made it this far through the episode, I really suggest you just hit the like button and subscribe down below. That would be much appreciated. But with all that being said, I want to thank you guys again for showing up. And remember, go Birds.